Hi, I'm Stacy Pingree, the founder of Radiant Financial Group and this Legacy Wealth Building podcast. We're so happy to have you here today. If it's your first time joining us, I'm just really passionate and excited about people and their stories and the idea of legacy wealth building with real estate. So I feel like sharing these stories with you helps to make them real and give you a path to create your own legacy. And I'm really a believer that a legacy is not something that you leave behind for someone, but it's something that you create within. So create within someone. So I hope these stories can resonate with you today. I am super thrilled and excited today to have one of my clients, friends, just a great, amazing guy, business person, community leader with us today. His name is Ivan Pemberton. Ivan he's got such an amazing story. When I started this idea of this podcast, like about, I don't know, a year ago or so, he was one of the first people I thought of because he is not only, he is the definition of legacy. His grandmother started a Montessori school over 50 years ago now.
Yeah.
72?
1972.
1972, my birth year. 53
That's
years old.
crazy.
Yeah. So, that is crazy because the funny thing about Ivan, I will say, is he was born 5 years after I graduated from high school.
Wow.
So although you are young, you have a laundry list of accomplishments and things that you just try and do, and you're constantly growing and expanding. And I think your story today, this resonates with me so much about legacy because I want our guests, our viewers to watch, or our viewers to watch and hear your story about, I have kids and I think about the businesses I built, and they may or may not be interested or, have a passion for it or see a way to expand it or grow it or change it. But I hope that I know that I'm instilling in them like some of the other legacy values about it. Right.
Yeah.
So with that, I know I'm so excited about you that I'm like, you're getting off track here, but I always say you're wise beyond your years. You're a total leader, a complete leader. It resonates off of you. So everyone is going to see that today, not to put you too much on, make you nervous here, but and you and I really share a passion for wealth building.
Yeah.
So I think, with that, I love how you're expanding all the time, and I would love to just turn this over to you. I don't want to tell the story of I would love for you to tell the story about how you got started in this, and even from Montessori.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me. This is fun.
Yes, of course.
So my grandma started a Montessori in 1972. So what's that, 53 years.
Yeah.
We've been in the same neighborhood. She started in a church, actually, built it from that. It was, like a scrappy startup. She was a teacher. She owned the business, her own kids. My dad and aunt were in the school. She started with 6 kids. As she likes to tell it, all 6 were family members, so no one was actually paying. But it gave the appearance that it was, a school, so people started to attend.
Yeah.
So she did that, and then when I was younger, I would have never thought like, I'm going to take over that business. But I think, speaking to your point about legacy and that, she instilled a lot of like entrepreneurial spirit in me. And I watched her, even unconsciously, just watching her on the phone and all of these different things and being like, wow, I want to be my own boss, but I don't know what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
So as a kid, I kind of always knew like, I want to be my own boss, but it was never like with a direction.
Right.
I didn't know, where that would lead.
Yeah.
So when I was in college at ASU, I started working for her, kind of bringing things to the 21st century, like helping our website or social media a little bit, working for her at the school. And at that time, it was kind of a good time for her because she was in her early 70s then, and she'd been doing it for a long time.
Yeah.
And she was just ready to be done, and I can't blame her, and do other more fun real estate projects, rather than kind of the day-to-day of a demanding people-oriented business.
Yeah.
So it worked out nicely that as she stepped away, I stepped in, and it just kind of seamlessly happened. But I was still working another job because it was all kind of unclear. I was working in politics and kind of some advertising stuff. And so
poli-sci.
Yeah,
poli-sci
major
guy.
in poli-sci.
Did you think you were going that direction?
I did. Yeah, it was always an interest, but then, business was kind of the fundamental interest.
Yeah. It's almost like you got to go make money and establish experience and credibility there before you do. I mean, it sounds, but that is kind of the way.
And there was a time where I thought like, I'm going to move away to a different city. I don't want anything to do with the family business. Like you kind of at 18, you want to try something different.
Yeah.
but then just working with her and seeing the opportunity of what you can do with a small business, both for others and for yourself. I mean, it's pretty phenomenal in terms of the impact we make as a business, but also,
say, especially as a school,
yeah,
because you're
you see
way
the
deep into the
results.
community. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's been really, really good. So as she started to step away, I stepped in. And then I think it was 2019 was when I kind of took the real plunge, like, okay, I'm going to quit my day job and I'm going to buy a business. And so I bought an existing Montessori school in Gilbert. And that was like the real step, because before it had felt kind of secure, and I could always call grandma up and be like, okay, this is what's going on here. And she'd be like, well, she's worked with that person 20 years, so she'd have a lot of advice. But to buy a business from scratch was like, okay, I'm going to try it. And so I quit, a job with a steady paycheck and benefits and retirement and all that, and was like, okay, I'm going to do it. So I did it. And I like to tell it, was 3 months before COVID hit, basically, that I took over.
Yes.
So to buy a people-oriented business 3 months before COVID hit was like the worst timing in the world.
That can't stay open.
No, they can't stay open. I mean, we were fortunate to be in Arizona, but it was still, a struggle. So, but I'd kind of call that like my boot camp into business ownership. So that's how it all got started. That was the path.
Oh, just dealing with those communication, the protocols with dealing with parents and children and employees and keeping people safe. I mean, it had to be just to add a whole nother level there,
It was a lot.
Yeah. I mean, I think you and I think we met right before that, because in fact, I was trying to think of the timeline, but when you said you bought that Gilbert school, it was, you had purchased that Gilbert school when we met, and you had so you'd be expanded a little bit beyond that, but tell me how. I love that story. I love that you, as I mentioned in the intro, like, you have this expansive mindset. I know that about you. What were your thoughts about growing that? I mean, both the business and then also talk a little bit about the real estate too.
Yeah, the real estate side of things is almost its own kind of separate story from that. I mean, it has the same parallel, which is, my grandma. She had just bought some unique properties over her life, and kind of as a kid getting to watch it, I was like, this is really cool. But it wasn't necessarily something where I was like, I'm gonna do this for a living, or this is going to be my primary interest. But as I got older, I saw it as like, wait, this is a way that I can retire early at some point. And she was a really good teacher, and that, like, okay, you make your money going in, all those different things that you hear, it was kind of like repeated to me, at 8, 9, 10, 11.
Oh yeah, you knew all that at the time I met you.
Yeah, I know. She had a lot of good advice.
Yeah.
I mean, I think like when I turned 11, she gave me Rich Dad Poor Dad's book and was like, here. And I was like, what? I don't know. What is this? I'm not interested in this. Yeah, the quadrant thing.
Yeah. I love it.
But the way that, and with her, that I got started in real estate was kind of interesting. So I was 18 when I bought the first property that I had. And the way I was able to do that, it's an interesting story, but my dad, 3 months before I was born, was killed in a car accident. Oh. And so, well, that obviously had an impact on me and my grandma, and that in a weird way, it brought her and I closer. But also there was some insurance money that was left, from what had happened. And so she, originally it was one of those things where it was like in a trust and it had to be administered and kind of dribbled out. But at 18, her and my mom said, you've got your head on your shoulders, and what are you going to do? Like, you're going to use it for college, you're going to do this. And I said, I think I want to buy just a rental property in Phoenix. And they were like, okay. And so they signed it. And I mean, my grandma likes to say, like, I would not do that for most 18-year-olds, but she's like, you saying that you want to buy a rental property in Phoenix was, she was like, I was sold.
Yeah, she was.
So, I couldn't have done it without their trust and sign off. But so they did that, and I bought a little house at 52nd Street in Thomas, kind of right by the school. And I remember when I bought it, I think it was $140,000, and my grandma was like, "That's insane. That's the most, it'll never be worth much more than that." But she was still supportive of the idea, and what's happened to the market since 2013.
Oh yeah,
so
that's crazy. What's it worth now?
450, 475.
So easily.
So easily, but yeah. So that was the start. But again, like to have that, to have the knowledge, but also to have the ability at 18. was good. And I looked at some crazy properties too, and she was like, "That's a bad idea." Location, location, location,
Yeah.
all of those things. So that was how the real estate side of things started. And then every couple of years, I'd try and find something or roll it into something or refinance. That kind of the game to slowly building it.
Yeah.
But
You called me, or you and I've talked a lot about like you were looking a lot. You're looking all the time. I'd
calling
say,
you all the time, like, "Hey, what do you think of this one?" And you're like, "Oh."
And I love that because I think, opportunities it's not about markets. It's not about cycles. It's about, I mean, it can be certainly driven, and it drops gasoline on, fires, on markets and things like that to have, like low interest rates or, whatever's going on. But, I think for you, what I really appreciate and admire is like, there's always an opportunity out there, a potential opportunity, right? So you're just looking, and if something comes up, you call and say, "Hey, what do the numbers look like on this?" And that to me is like just like the constant, again, that expansive mindset of like, well, I've never really done this before. I haven't really rehabbed a house before. I haven't really bought something and torn it down.
Haven't used hard money before.
Haven't used hard money before. Yeah. But you did have quite a bit of experiences with, I mean, you also have done this commercially, in commercial.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, talk to me about this. So when you expanded the school.
Yeah. So I expanded the one school in Phoenix, and that was, I'm trying to think of what year that was. I think it was around 2022. And that was the first really commercial, real estate project that I did. And it was just that the building popped up for sale. I can't even remember. It wasn't on the market yet, I don't think, but I somehow found it, through knowing someone. And then I just kind of went down that path and thought like, well, this is, one, I can expand the business, but two, I can get a piece of commercial real estate, because before that it had only been residential, single family. And I was pretty conservative in my approach. Like, I wasn't using hard money for anything yet. I wasn't like flipping or doing anything like that. It was like a buy and hold and find a tenant, and real practical and slow.
Which is good.
Which is good. But the commercial one was a different beast, getting a commercial loan and doing all of those things on a building was a lot different than refinancing a single family home. So
big time.
That was a good step forward, and I feel like it was a good time to do it, especially before rates went up.
So you expanded the school in the
Phoenix.
Original school in Phoenix.
Yeah.
And then
most recently moved the school in Gilbert to a new commercial building. So that was about 3 months ago. So now have 2 commercial properties, and it's been good. You learn something in every transaction, and I think that's motivated me in the more recent years to do more. Like before I was always like, can I do it? Should I do it? I was looking all the time online and going and seeing places. But now that I've done it, I'm like, wait, every time, it seems to work. So do it again. But
well, you do your due diligence, even though it feels like it's inspired by emotion or like excitement about it.
There's a lot of homework.
Yeah, you do a lot of homework with it. I mean, this is so funny, but I always laugh because you're one of the many clients that calls me about California all the time, and so many people want to have a place in, Newport Beach or someplace out there that's on the water and so close. And we've talked about this Coronado or,
Then I always price the payment with you. And I'm like, never mind. I'll just go stay in a hotel.
Well, it's so beyond just even the payment, right? It's like the taxes are like, I mean, even the prices are high than the taxes. So it's just funny to me, when you do your due diligence, you always come back to like, okay, but I know I can make this work and I've got the cash flows. So really, I think doing the diligence to figure out, have that, it's ingrained in you. To look at an opportunity and see it. And that's the entrepreneurial side of the business expansion, as well as the real estate.
And I think, again, I got a lot of that from my grandma. She was really conservative in her approach. She didn't take on big debt to expand. She never really did that. It was always like, take, a 10% expansion, a 20%, but never like, I'm going to start a school down the road and take on a big loan. But on the flip side, she said to me, like, you got a really good start, so you should do that. You should be, calculated, but take some risks. So I think in more recent years, I've done that, and it's been worth it. But like you said, you got to do your homework.
Yeah, for sure. And, going back to that, that idea of legacy. Well, first of all, my kids went to Montessori. So when you and I first talked, when we first even met and talked, I was like, Montessori, I do feel like it did something to your, individualism is such it's hard, and
it's valued in Montessori.
So valued. And what works for you is maybe the way you learn and the way you develop, and is just different. And I think it's a lot like investing. It's a lot like
It
being an
is.
entrepreneur. I mean, you're going to find pockets of and time and areas where, you're going to expand and be able to grow the business because
Yeah.
it's the right fit for you. And then there's other ways that people were like, oh, you should have done this. You're like, it's not the way I do it, So
Yeah.
I see that with real estate investing too.
Yeah, and I don't know if it was Montessori or upbringing or both, but
Both, probably,
it
yeah.
was kind of for me I never wanted like a 9 to 5 that looked the same. And when I
Yeah.
tried that right out of college, it was like, okay, I'm doing this for reasons so that I can get, to a certain place, but it was kind of like, okay, I did the same thing yesterday. I don't like that so much.
Yeah.
So doing real estate and having a small business, no 2 days are the same.
Yeah.
Which is mostly a good thing. Depends on the day, but mostly a good thing.
Mostly a good thing, yeah. That's another level of like digging deeper into this too. There's so much opportunity, so many different opportunities.
Yeah.
I've seen you now. The idea of taking a house and leveraging, or same with the business. I mean, you've leveraged the community that you built, to with that kind of like trust
Right.
and leadership style that you've established, and everything you've established in the community has helped you build and grow and expand. And that other school, I know it had a base already as well. But when it comes to the leverage of the real estate, I know I watched you now take properties that maybe are free and clear and leverage those to do some improvements so that you're just kind of constantly using yourself as a bank. We've talked a lot about that, like how do you use your own equity as a bank to be
I
able
finally
to grow.
did the HELOC, by the way.
Yay!
You finally convinced me to do
Oh,
that.
yay.
So
Okay, good.
I did it. Again, it's sort of that like conservative mindset in me. It was like, don't do that. It's bad. I just had this weird, preconception about it. But, once you've done your homework and you know what you're investing it in, it makes a lot of sense.
Well, and it's you have a plan. It's well thought out. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm always like, well, how are we getting, like, the hard money is great too, but
Right.
my thing's always like, how are we getting out of the hard money? How are
Right.
what's our exit strategy for that? Because unless you're going to sell it, if you're going to sell the house and flip it or whatever, it's great. But otherwise we got to refinance into something
Yeah.
more permanent, or we've got to like get enough money
that.
made to pay it down or whatever.
Yeah.
So, but I do like to see you taking those really calculated risks. Cause again, it's just expanding your, portfolio, but legacy, is really what it comes down to. So, what do you think is next for you as far as, the school and?
I don't know. I feel like at this point, I'm enjoying the real estate side of things a lot. I've got 2 projects going on right now. You know about both of them, but they were both pretty rough. They weren't, like the first couple rental properties that I picked up they were pretty much turnkey. I mean, it had yellow paint on one of them, and I had to paint it white, but that's not hard work.
Right.
The ones that I've taken on now are, there's no bathrooms, there's no, the plumbing's messed up or rough condition.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of what I've expanded into now and what I'm liking. Every day's different with that, and I can see doing more and more of those projects. Again, I think I'm more of a buy and hold person, but I think, what you've taught me and what I've learned from others is using hard money, using a HELOC, to my advantage to be able to pick up a property that can't qualify for conventional financing.
Yeah.
That's a big one. That was just something I was never considered before, because I'm like, I'm not going to have a fixed payment, or I'm paying interest only for 3 months while I fix it up. That was kind of a scary concept to me. So to be able to be in the middle of 2 projects right now doing that is exciting and fun. Again, calculated, I didn't just pick them randomly, but.
Well, no, and you've done it. You've done the things where you've stayed in the property for, being calculated in it. You've stayed in a property that you could afford. I mean, you were Puget before, you were at, in Tempe. And so it's like, you just have evolved those as primaries really, and even this new project you're doing will be a new primary. So that'll be exciting, but that one you're going to have a lot of sweat equity in.
I know.
You're doing
I know. I'm there every day. I'm breathing in the insulation and all of that.
Oh man. What year is that property?
1960 it was built. 1960. So it's got a lot of interesting features, sunken living room, all of that. But it's fun.
Yeah.
It's fun. So I'm really getting into that. I'm really liking, maybe what you'd categorize as like the rougher projects that aren't so turnkey ready. And I think in the interesting market we have right now with high interest rates and that, you kind of have to go for those oddball or, rougher condition properties.
I think you got a deal. I think you did well on this one getting into it because
I do too.
Because of the condition it was in, right?
Yeah, and that scares a lot of people off. I mean, it scared me off for years and years. Like I was like, I'd never take something on like that, but it's fun now. I like it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's the, I mean, again, you got to it took you time to align yourself with the contractors we were talking about before,
Yeah.
and
Kind of build the contact
yeah,
of how to do it.
but even with the schools, I mean, you've had that opportunity too. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, what I hear from you is like, I mean, there's a focus for you, right? Like, what do you, is your passion like the entrepreneurialism, or is it, I mean, what do you feel like it's that, or do you think it's the actual love of real estate, the design, the challenge? Like, what is your real
I think I
driver?
like the process a lot.
Yeah.
I think like once I've gone through kind of like you mentioned the commercial projects, it's like, okay, once I've done that, it's not so scary. It doesn't seem as big as it did like doing it for the first time, that then I want to try something new. I think maybe that goes back to the Montessori upbringing, but that it's the process. It's learning. Um, it's learning how to take an house that can't be lent on because it's in such bad shape and take
Yeah.
it to a place where it's not there. I think it's really fun. So I think that's like in terms of the trajectory for me, I see more and more projects like that. Bigger projects,
Yeah.
where it's messy or there's got to be an add-on or things like that. I'd like to build something from scratch, but haven't gotten there.
You have that teed up down. I mean,
Yeah.
it's the permits.
It's the
and
lot that I've talked to you about a lot. So I
It's
gotta figure the permit side out,
Yeah.
and that's that's a learning experience too. I've had to do it with the schools, but working with municipalities and going through zoning regulations and use permits and variances, and I've had to do that now. And that was intimidating before, and now I'm like, okay, there's a process.
Yeah.
It's not as intimidating. So
That's funny. That's funny. You're right, and you've got this little bit of like background of like this community leadership. I mean, you're into it.
Yeah.
Which I love and commend you, because it takes again another level of like guts. Best way to say it, right?
Yeah.
To put yourself out there, and you wrote yourself in to
I did a write-in race and then ran for school board. Lost both, but it was, again, I learned a lot.
incredible though. Like it's
Yeah.
incredible. I mean, just to have
Yeah, it definitely gives you
the courage.
thicker
Yeah.
skin. I was
Yeah.
like, that was probably my biggest takeaway from it. Is like, okay, people could say anything about me, it's not going to affect me now.
Gosh, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, it makes me nervous. I'm in this little, bedroom community out here in the west side of
Yeah.
Phoenix, and I think, man, there is I watch the little politics on the board here, and
On
I'm
next door, all the stuff. Yeah, people
yeah.
posting.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
your friends are not your friends, and when
And things are so divisive in that, but it
Yeah.
was a good experience. It was
Yeah.
a good experience. And I think most things get done at the local level. So
I agree with that 100%. I mean, that's what I love about this is like you're sitting here, you're not just making an impact, for your family and your future generations and what kind of carrying on that legacy for your grandma. But when you're giving back into the community the way you are, because you really are. I mean, I know how the values of your upbringing, the values
Yeah.
that they carry into your business, they carry into your community and the kids and the teachers and everybody that are there.
Yeah.
But that's congratulations. I think it is
you.
just really an honor. It's honorable, to be carrying something on that's an important legacy. It's, wealth is, hey, people all can come into wealth in all kinds of ways.
Sure.
Money wealth. But I mean, I think that is so enriching to have a legacy that actually gives into a community like you are. I mean,
Yeah. And that's kind of about the businesses, which again have allowed me to do real estate projects. So I'm fortunate for that. But also, it's nice to feel like every day you're making some kind of positive impact.
How many employees do you guys have?
I think between the three, about 75. So
I mean, that's a big operation.
People are constantly like, so do you want to expand? Do you want 4 schools, 5 schools? So I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Having that many people working for you is hard. There's always some fire to put out. I mean, I suppose real estate and contracting are the same way, but I think that's in a way a little bit easier. So I don't know, if that expansiveness is going to continue in the business. I feel like we've got a really good thing going right now with the quality of what we offer.
Yeah.
Don't want to sacrifice
Yeah.
that.
Yep.
I also don't want to work, 80 hours a week. So we're kind of in a good sweet spot right now, and I might, don't think I'm going to mess with it.
Yeah.
At least for now.
Do you have help as far as like operationally and stuff like that? At each place, or do you?
Yeah,
okay.
I do.
I mean,
And they're
operation
all really
managers
great.
and things
Yeah.
like that. Yeah. I mean, you'd have to really. It's just so much going on every day.
Well, every day there's something.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that in a bad way, but I mean, people are trusting their kids for 10 hours a day with, with you. So there's always going to be concerns and questions and comments and all of that. So
I mean, I'm just financing a house for them,
Right. And there's still a lot of questions.
I mean, their
right?
kids sleep there.
Yeah,
Technically, I guess
I know they
that's
take naps
yeah,
there.
they take
Yeah,
notes.
yeah,
No, I think I think that the big takeaway on that is staying focused, and it's really hard. I mean, my little company, we have just like 17, and
yeah,
I think to myself all the time, like, oh man, when I had one person, the dynamic of the culture change, like it, or
yeah.
put it this way, we now have learned over the years how to hire people that fit a
Right.
culture and a fee, our vibe. That's
Yeah.
what we put our vibe.
Yeah.
Because one person coming in that doesn't have the right mix or whatever can be a huge problem. Just disruption.
I know, and the more people you add, the harder that gets.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's
It's a challenge.
that's a different beast.
Yeah. What you and I talked a lot about your grandmother, and I love this again, goes back to this legacy. She's definitely not retired.
No, I wouldn't say I mean, I would say she left, the Montessori world and took on a whole new career.
Yeah.
Is the way I'd put it.
Exactly.
But it's inspiring for me. I mean, she's 82.
You have to tell the story. You have to tell the Tucson like what she's doing, because I think it's just
Oh
funny.
yeah.
I mean,
So she's fixing up a house in Tucson. She actually lives there, and the house is basically fixed up, but I don't think she's ever going to stop. And she took a house, and I thought she was going to do some cosmetic repairs in that, because that was kind of what was described to me. And then she's telling me, well, we've ripped all the old wiring out. We're moving this. We're doing that. We're putting a pool in. We're doing. I was just blown away. I was like, okay,
she's a Renaissance
all
woman.
right.
Yeah.
So, at 80, she was doing a full scale contracting project, didn't hire a general contractor, did it herself with subcontractors, and, ran the whole job herself. So that's inspiring for me. I hope I have that energy at that age, but,
I mean, that's incredible.
yeah.
I mean, incredible to see her, because running a school has got to be one of the hardest businesses out there, especially like you said, Montessori, just the kid. I mean, just every element of it.
Yeah.
Parents.
Yeah.
And at that level, parents are hands on. They
have to be.
They want to know. Yeah. So it's like you're really dealing with that along the way. But so to see her still creating projects, it is funny because you must get some of the the drive for the process and the project and all that from
definitely
being around her for all those years.
Yeah.
Anyway, I hope I get to meet her someday.
Yeah, I know. Well, her and I talk every day on the phone, and it's pretty, it's a good process for me too, with doing these different deals, because I think to really succeed in kind of building something, you have to take risks. And so throughout that, like during COVID with the businesses, or even buying this property with hard money, this most recent one, she's usually the person I run things by first. And sometimes, she's like, oh, I don't know. And then she'll come back the next day and she's like, you should do it. And here's why. So she calls me about her project in Tucson. I call her about all the stuff up here probably once a day.
Oh my gosh.
I run numbers by her. Like when I get bids, like yesterday I was on the phone with her, like, hey, I got this plumbing bid. What does that sound like to you? And she goes and tells me what she paid the plumber. And it's really good. It's unique, but it's a really good.
So it's a mentorship still. I mean, it is. I look at that as like, it's almost like you have a mastermind with your between the folks. And I know when you're calling me for something too, it's usually like, just what do you think about this? I mean, I love that. And I do the same with you. I want to ask and find out and know like I mean, that's how we learn and grow, right? Is just to share ideas and all that. Well, I love it. I mean, what do you think is so you'll end up doing it? Are you going to run for any sort of like, do you see yourself getting back to politics ever?
Maybe. I don't know. After basically losing 2 elections, I kind of was like, no, I don't see it. But I've thought more and more about it.
You're like in your mid-20s, right?
I know. On a local level, I thought, I think I'd do it again. But I'm enjoying putting my time into real estate and things like that. So I think it's years off, but the passion is still there. I kind of can't get rid of it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
You'll have influence and impact on so many people just doing what you're doing right now. It's just like this. I mean, I wanted to share your story because I felt like it was just so worth telling, that you have, so many times in a legacy situation where a business is being sort of like taken over by the kids or a family member of some way. It's either whittled down to nothing or whittled away or lost in translation, and I think that is just like a real testament to one, your like the legacy that she left, right? Because you want to uphold that, and I know you don't do it all by yourself, right? I know there's people out there that work with
certainly
you.
not.
Yeah, so it takes a village in all fronts there too. But like the fact that you've been able to do that and expand on it, and just the growth mindset you have. So I wanted to share that with our viewers, and just let them know that like those are the, you're not set in any sort of like path in life. You can choose your path, and then when you do choose the path, even if it's a path that was a previous generations, you can do whatever you want with it.
I know. And I was fortunate to have the trust, but also, mentorship. And I mean, my mom started a Montessori school in Tucson when I grew up too. So she owned her own business, eventually sold it. So I've had a lot of observation, kind of like in Montessori, but observation of business ownership. And so that was helpful. I felt like it was, set me up nicely to be able to step in and, see that you work double the hours of when you have a W-2 job.
Yeah.
but it's worth it.
I have to imagine that a lot of people look to you for advice. I mean, I mean, just because of your age and your network, I mean, do you get calls too the same way because you're doing things?
Not until recently, but I mean, sort of recently,
or
at least
you
friends.
kind of just do your thing and you don't showboat about it either.
Yeah, I'm quiet. I mean, this is as loud as it gets, just being here talking about everything. I really don't talk about much of what I do, but I mean, friends and that. But I've got different friends who are buying houses or doing projects, and they'll ask me things, and usually it's me just passing on what I've learned from you or other people, like, oh, did you know you can get a HELOC to buy this or do that, just different tips like that. But that hasn't been until recently.
What advice do you give right now? I mean, I think of you as such a focused, again, a big thinker, but it's hard to, another guest says what resonates with me is like, you can create, you can show people how to do, you can give them advice and all that, but they have to want it, And so what resonates with you is like, this expansive minds, like what advice would you give today to somebody who's like, I'm scared, I want to get in the market, the rates are high, the, prices are high. In Arizona it has gone up a lot. It's expensive.
It's crazy.
Yeah,
it is crazy. But I think every time I've talked to you or talked to my grandma or other people in it, we all kind of laugh about what like we just said that I bought that first house in 2013 for 140, and to my grandma that was ludicrous. Like that's a $60,000 house.
Right.
I mean, she knew that neighborhood well. The school's right by it. And she just thought that was absurd. And she said, well, maybe someday it'll be worth 160, And so I think even with the high rates, and you've taught me that a lot, if you can rent it for the payment or, you'll have enough equity in a year or two, I think what I've learned in the last 3 years is to take the risk. Now, that doesn't mean buy something that's overpriced, or just buy for buying's sake. But I think I look at each decision, like when I bought my first primary residence and moved into it, I thought that was like the most I'd ever spend on a house. And it was so nerve-wracking. And, the roof leaked, the windows leaked like the first summer, and I fixed it myself. It was, it was nerve-wracking, but you kind of have to do that. And I think even today, with the high interest rates, which means your payment's just going to be higher, I still think it's worth it. Like even on one of these hard money deals that I did, I went back and forth in my head even after I'd signed, like, okay, is this really going to be worth it? And then I kind of confided in my grandma, like, my payment's going to be this, and I think I might only be able to rent it for that. And I was like, what have I done? Like, is this a good deal? And she said, someone else is paying off your mortgage. Of course it's a good deal. She was like, what in what world is that a bad deal? She's like, 30 years from now, if you do nothing else, of course there's work, property management work, but she said, if you do nothing else, you'll have that money coming in as retirement. She said, that's your 401k.
Yeah.
And so that totally was just an attitude shift for me of like, oh, it was still good to buy, even though my interest rate's going to be 6.99 or whatever it's going to be. Yeah. It was still a good decision. Yeah. And so I think for people looking to take that jump, I think do it is the answer. I don't think 5 years ago people thought Phoenix and the greater area would be as high as it is now. And I feel like we're going to say that 5 years from now. We can't build enough to keep up with demand. I mean, there's all kinds of different things that you read. So I think 100%. Buy, as long as it's a sound deal and, you can cover your debt load. I think the answer is to do it.
Well, and I highlight this because, you're saying things that the takeaway here for me is like, you do your research,
Yeah,
you look at
yeah.
it, you run the numbers by a trusted advisor, or a couple of them,
Yeah.
probably. And then look at the different financing options and the ways you can leverage it the best
Yeah.
over what you already own, maybe. And then, you take the risk.
Yeah.
If you
Yeah.
can get somebody to pay for it, but you also, you have a job that
Yeah.
that provides income
And
that
that
you
helps.
still focus
That
on.
helps a
Yeah.
lot.
I mean, a professional in this space is one thing. I mean, again, I love to have the guest on that has built this and is an entrepreneur in something else
Yeah.
besides real estate. And then they say, oh, and by the way, yeah, a big pivotal piece of my business wealth creation is the real estate aspect of it, even for the school,
Yeah.
right? You're building real estate assets there. But I mean, on top of, if it was just a school and it operated, you would have an income there. And then this has been an extra thing. So I love the layer.
And I don't kid myself in the sense that I don't, I've never really had the interest, and some people do and do it well, in flipping properties to make money. I don't, I view real estate as like 50% of my work output. I keep my day job. I have, well, that's hard, and it's 75 employees and all of those different things. It's one, it's rewarding, but two, it's a lot of security, and I wouldn't give that up. So I think, the hard part is for people looking to get into it. I really think keeping a stable job, even if that's working for someone else, might be the answer to getting into real estate. Because to do it full time, I mean, you just have to be so dialed in. And I don't kid myself, I'm not that dialed in on stuff. And so I need my day job to make sure that, I can eat and do things that I want to do.
Yeah,
so.
no, I gotcha. Well, I love this. I want to thank you so much. I'm so I'm honored to be a friend, and I just love working with you, and I love having lunch with you and having you
talking about Crazy House 1, Crazy House 2. I know.
And I just think I love the way you set your sights on the next thing, and I'm just here for it. So I'm excited to be a part of it, and for anyone else watching, I mean, I think it just says so much about like your age and where you started. I mean, you're under 30. You don't turn 31 until June. I think
June. Yeah.
So it's amazing. I'm not even gonna. You have how many? I mean, you don't mind my just.
I know. I think 9 properties total. 9 properties.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it is. But I think another part of it is don't be afraid to. And again, I think my upbringing pushed me to do this. But like, don't be afraid to expand your connections. I mean, I call you all the time. I bug you. I text you. I'm like, what do you think of this listing? What do you think of this payment? Is there hard money on that? I ask questions constantly. And I think even 5 years ago, I was a little more shy. Certainly not shy after running for office, but you can't be. But just, getting a good CPA, building a team, and not being afraid to call those people up regularly. And people want to give advice. That's the other thing. Like, people enjoy it. And so getting a contractor, learning about that, working with a municipality, like once you learn those things, they're less intimidating. So just kind of try it, reach out to the person, or, call your mortgage lender 5 times in a week about a property.
Every 5 times in a day. Whatever happens. I really appreciate that, respect that, because I feel like that was such a big pivotal part of our growth and my growth, and as a professional, was to just start reaching out to people that were leveling me up. I mean, we've shared professionals, right? So we referred each other, people that can help. And I mean, just some of the you've done. We didn't get into it, but you've done like every tax strategy too, which has been. But
thanks to you, because of a recommendation you gave, for
those cost segs. Some of this big stuff on it. When you're an investor, you can take some really great.
And that was something that even, I've talked to friends who've gone to like business school or in a CPA, track, and like they hadn't heard of some of those things. And I mean, I didn't know what a cost seg was, and I was researching real estate tax strategies all the time online, and just being with the right CPA, having the right advice, and having someone who's willing to sit down or come to the property and be like, okay, here, let's talk about this. Here's who we're going to call for this and that. It's just that's really changed the game for me. Is to have that.
I always say that too. I say if you're giving all the tax advice to your CPA of what to do to help you save, then you need to talk to another CPA.
And I was in a situation where I was just felt like I was giving the information, and I thought, I don't know anything about taxes. This is not my wheelhouse. And so making that switch, and thanks to you, and the recommendation you made, that was a game changer too. And now I feel like I know a lot, that I can tell other people, like, have you heard of a cost seg? And they're like, what's that?
That's exactly.
I'm like, well, I don't really know, but I'll give you the person to
This
call.
person you need to call.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, I want to thank you so much.
Yeah.
I love where you're going. I can't wait to see you. I can't wait to do this podcast again in like a year and
I
2
know.
years or whatever,
It'll be
and
fun.
see where you're at. Yeah.
See if I finish these projects.
Yeah,
right now.
exactly. Well, yeah, we'll be see how many more extra little lines you have.
I
in
know.
here.
I know. There'll be a lot.
I think you've outlined, like, the more focused you are in these ways, and the due diligence you do, the more successful you'll be. And so, anyway, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
This was fun.
Yeah.
Good to be here.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us today. And thank you to Ivan. And we'll see you next time.